Hello and welcome to the Learn to Fly series from Westcoast. It's a four-part series. Today we'll be discussing pitching Juniper networks. In a later session, we'll be talking about the products and the pain points that might be involved and why you might suggest those products for your customers. The third part will be an SDSN overview, so really a more detailed view of what we're going to be discussing today in more detail. And then on the final installment, we'll be taking a journey into the cloud and understanding how Juniper can be positioned as a hybrid cloud security product using the virtual firewalls as well as the physical hardware that comes alongside that solution as well. Today, however, the main focus will be on how to open a conversation around Juniper, how to get your customers engaged, and how to really make sure that we're maximizing the boardroom opportunity. Now, in countless instances, I know of salespeople that go to board meetings and talk about hardware products and find that it's often a less successful pitch than telling a story based on emotion and sort of being able to create a powerful image around the customer's pain points. Now, this is what this webinar attempts to address. And clearly, alongside this, we're also going to be introducing Juniper's USPs. What is it about Juniper that makes it such a good solution for enterprise businesses? And how that Juniper USP, how Juniper as a company sets out to solve real world problems using its hardware and software solutions. So as I mentioned, today we'll be contextualizing data. So what does that actually mean to an enterprise? What is data to an enterprise, and how is that evolving as well? And how is the world that we see now in data terms, how does that affect the boardroom? What relevance does that bring in as part of the conversation? And then I'll introduce what Juniper Networks hardware comes alongside the solution. What is needed to be able to create this secure network that I'm going to discuss further today. So here at Westcoast, we pride ourselves on being the best. We pride ourselves on our agility and the personal touch that comes with our account management as well as our BDMs. And that's what you can expect as well from Westcoast. If you do choose to get in touch to talk to us about Juniper or any other products that we sell, you know that you're going to be speaking to a real person that's going to be at the end of the phone, and we're going to be able to respond to you quickly and well as well, and be able to answer your question. Now, Juniper, what does it mean to be a Juniper Networks partner? Well, Juniper is a challenger brand that's had 20 years of history now or more. And to be a partner, all you have to do is go online and fill out a simple registration link that's can be provided by Westcoast. At which point you'll be able to access the deal registration platform, and there'll be no requirement on you to hold stock or do certifications or even to achieve revenue thresholds. However, if you do choose to do that, if you do choose to pursue a Juniper revenue path, then the minimum threshold is $350,000 back to Juniper, at which point you'll be known as a select partner, which nets you rebates as well as further upfront discounts. But access to tools is much the same as before, with deal registration, co-branded marketing, all being free of charge and available through the Partner Center. Should you then decide you want to take your partnership to the next level again, you would become known as an elite partner, at which point you're doing $2 million worth of revenue back to Juniper annually, and you have certified staff in your pre-sales roles that can carry out a Juniper sale end to end. At which point you're as equipped and as ready as you need to be. Really, this webinar is to enable all levels of partners and improve understanding about how to introduce Juniper into a conversation for everyone, however. So let's all join together on this one. So I mentioned data in modern organizations, and what does that look like? Now, at this point, people start to appreciate statistics. Juniper, for example, powers 60% of the internet's transactions. 96 of the Fortune 100 use Juniper Networks hardware and products, and 6 of the 7 largest stock exchanges in the world have Juniper in their core at some stage. Now, what does that mean to you? I mean, this is where the statistics fall apart. And what you're trying to do here is to achieve a conversation with your customer at any level of their business about what does data mean to them, what does data mean to their role. And even if data isn't meaningless to a managing director, then why aren't they thinking about the effect of IoT? Of bring your own device, where they're allowing other networking devices to join their network unsecured potentially. And that's what we're really going to address today. We think about the world of 10 years ago where we were still sitting around using dial-up internet. Now we're on to bigger, faster broadband connections. Mobile companies are talking about 5G. Now, what does that really mean in terms of the data consumption that we're going to start seeing every day? We already talk about data as the modern equivalent of gold. That's certainly going to be true as we discuss further what data can mean within an organization for its networking data. The role of the cloud, for instance, there's lots of innovative ideas at the moment, and all of this is going to need not just the cloud itself and Microsoft Azure and AWS to be the cloud service providers, but additionally it will need the networking hardware and the networking infrastructure that can power that many connections, run that much throughput. And Juniper is very much a real world manufacturer that can answer these challenging questions that we suffer from today. So when you're introducing the conversation around data, is your company a solution company, or are you still trying to pitch firewalls? What value can we get out of our data, however? So within a network, there is millions of points of data that are that could be left uncollected every day, that are floating around. Now, these take the forms of logs. Applications create a lot of noise on the network. And if we're choosing to ignore this, then we might be brushing aside perhaps the most important piece of information that our network gives us, and that is what it's actually doing. What is normal on our network? How does that look, and what shape does that take? Now, if we're saying that we're at the bottom of the pyramid, then we're talking about it as though it's data. But if we were to be able to collate that somehow, there was a mechanism we could use to bring that all together, we could get some information out of it. Now, that's starting to add some value to the conversation we're going to be having later on today. Now, if we're able to act on that information, if we're able to say, well, the information that we've gathered around the data that our network's generating now puts us in a position where we're able to act. That puts us in a lot stronger position to also be able to secure our own network. Now, there's a lot of discussion around endpoint antivirus, clearly as a marketable solution in small businesses, but the enterprise will see the relevance of having a network-level security strategy. And if they go out and buy that off the shelf, then they're going to be playing a constant game of cat and mouse with cyber hackers that would want to be able to access their data. Now, if they're able to tailor their own security solution using their own networking data, that isn't as simple for a hacker to be able to break as them going to a shop and buying a model patch, waiting for the software to be updated, and then break the new patch. This is a lot more bespoke to that organization, and this is where we're really able to see the value in a Juniper network solution. Now, clearly, a lot of this conversation isn't going to be relevant for every business out there. So it's in an ideal world, we as salespeople, it's our job to make sure that we know we're pitching at the right level. Clearly, this conversation isn't relevant for everyone, and therefore we need to be able to open the conversation. By talking about data, we're going to understand what it is that our customers wants to achieve from the conversation. What is it they want to be able to get out of it? Are they looking for a single firewall to be able to buy today from yourselves, or are they actually out there looking for a much more integrated solution? And before you proceed in the pitch, it's a good idea to sort of uncover this as a next step. Now, as I mentioned, the insight we gain can lead to security. We build up this picture around data. Every day, for instance, someone logs on at 9 o'clock in the morning and accesses the same applications. Now, that would be perceived as normal behavior. And if we know what abnormal is on our own network, then we're also able to to monitor and chart abnormal behavior. What isn't proper on a network? What doesn't happen every day? And we're able to make challenges based on those as well. This is all, again, from organic data that our network is feeding us all the time. Now, earlier I described data as gold earlier. Now, where do you keep your gold on your network? Who has access to it? And if you can't answer those questions, then it might be time to start thinking about a more comprehensive security solution. Now, by this point in the discussion, I've largely introduced the pitch. A lot of the rest of this will begin to make sense. Essentially, it's bringing the pieces together that we've spoken about so far. And really, a discussion is around how your customer uses its data. What do they do with it? How do they protect it? Do they protect it from the outside only, or are they also able to use their network to be able to protect what the valuable assets they hold within it? And if you don't feel the customer is ready to move from this point, and then you need to spend longer introducing the idea of data. And don't be afraid to ask questions that they might not want to answer. But it does bring you away from introducing a single firewall as a Cisco ASA, and for them shrug their shoulders and say, I'm not interested. But it's a far more interactive conversation that you can have from cold call number one if need be. Building a picture of what the business does with data means that you'll be able to introduce the idea that they can understand what's on their network, what applications are flowing where, and where the traffic is going. At that point, you'll be able to understand and highlight abnormal requests and be able to understand what normal is on the network. Now, not everything's going to be wanting to be talking to itself, and that's the point of interconnectivity. That's what we provide when we're building out a network solution. But is everything doing so in an optimal manner, and is everything doing so in a secure manner? Now that's where the Juniper side of the technology can get really clever. But now we need to understand how we go from each step, how we go from step to step on this diagram, and what we need to do to move things forwards towards enforcement from understanding and interpreting data. The first step really is to collect the data points in a single place. Now that could be, ideally this is a single pane of glass, it could be any form of network appliance, however, and we'll understand that later. But really what we're trying to do here is suggest that by collecting all the logs that the networking equipment produces and representing those, we're able to present that as information. And that information is telling a story of what our network is doing. Now, looking to build on our understanding that we generated from collecting the data, we're wanting to transform that into an insight. We're wanting to now build out a picture of what is this idea of normal that we're trying to get to. What does our network do normally? Under normal circumstances, how does it behave? If we have people that sit in a sales office accessing a contact list, well, then that is going to be very normal. But suddenly one of those salespeople might well try to access something they've never tried to access before in a server that holds financial information, for instance. Now, are we able to challenge that? And that's the kind of insight that we need to be able to have within the customer's site to be able to keep them secure. This is where we're really being able to add value to this conversation. Around how they're actually able to protect internally within their business as well as from external threats too. You know, ultimately what you don't know is what might threaten you, but what you do know is what you can keep secure. Now, to turn that into a policy is the next and the last step in this pitch before it really repeats itself based on new data and new information. Are we able to automate this process? Can we go from knowing to doing without a step in the middle, or do we still have to rely on human intervention? Do we still have to rely? How long does it take us to respond to this? And if it's the process that grinds our business to a halt, then I'd suggest that's not security. I suggest acting to remediate a threat after it's already happened is too late. Well, the position we need to be in with our customers is to say that our network is taking action itself to be able to protect what our valuable assets. If you like, it's a software-defined approach to protect security. Now, clearly, there is hardware that comes with this, as well as that Juniper USP that I mentioned before. It's a solution that only Juniper is able to talk about. Juniper clearly is in a very competitive landscape, where on the networking side, we compete daily with the likes of Cisco, and in security, we compete with Checkpoint and with Palo Alto. Now, why would you buy a Juniper product? Juniper works on open standards, so it's able to plug in and play with other vendors on the market, as well as interact with other equipment that's already sitting on the customer's estate. Now, clearly, Juniper only manufactures firewalls, routers, and switches, and as Juniper doesn't manufacture the full stack, it needs to be able to work with other vendors and what they already have on the customer's site. Now, from that last step, when we're creating policy based on that insight, Juniper is actually able to enforce policy on other vendors' networking equipment already, the likes of an Aruba ClearPath appliance or even a Cisco switch. Juniper is able to enforce policy on those devices. So Juniper is, as a market leader in automation, is leaps and bounds ahead of anyone else in the space, and that's where this pitch really is a Juniper exclusive pitch. So to come from data to information, a very integral piece of our network is the firewall. Now the firewall inherently, as its core function, collects information on the network. A lot of what it does is understand what applications are doing to be able to keep them secure and be able to keep them in check. And we can plug this into Active Directory to gain context on users, understand user group behavior, and be able to create quality of support offerings. Now the Juniper firewall is a Juniper SRX. They're next generation firewalls, so they can protect you on a zero-day basis from external and unknown threats. They're also UTM appliances that come with the IPS and IDP that you'd expect from a firewall these days. They also are positioned for the enterprise. They also pack a lot of grunt for their price point, and the price point is low due to promotions. So it gives us as resellers a great opportunity to make margin. Now, a SIEM is mentioned quite a lot in high-level reports that we see from Gartner. A SIEM solution ultimately is the ultimate piece of kit at bringing together logs and representing all that information together in one single pane of glass. A more simple version of this can be achieved using Juniper's Security Director, which can be run in Space, which is a management appliance for the firewalls to essentially manage what the firewalls can do. However, we are in the right situations, opening the conversation to be talking about SIEM, Security Information and Event Management, will really complete the picture, as this packs a lot of punch and is able to generate preloaded reports on pre-configured reports that can achieve audit compliance. Using a SIEM solution, you can mitigate threats and gain granular levels of detail about what's actually happening on the network, and that's what we're trying to achieve when we're looking to be able to create an insight. Now, to be able to create policy based on that insight is the final step, and this is where Juniper really has a niche in the market currently. We're able to go from having Security Director, which is bringing all of the information about the firewall's activity together. A piece of software called Policy Enforcer is able to act on that instantaneously within minutes. Policy Enforcer is a piece of software that's able to act within minutes to be able to secure the network, and would be able to shut down suspicious activity on a zero-day basis. This can plug into the next generation capabilities called SkyATP for Juniper, where the cloud will actually feed intelligence on unknown files that are within the network, and Policy Enforcer is able to protect those in real time, which takes out the need for human intervention, and which could cause delays, which may be costly for that business. So to summarize and bring the circle together, as well as be able to represent it as a circle once more, because as I mentioned, creating new policy, and even every day, even as new users enter the network, the cycle will repeat itself, and so it is very much a cycle. The first piece is the firewall, which I mentioned, which can bring everything together as a fundamental part of its job. That's what it's there for. The next part is the SIEM solution, or the management, which brings that information together and represents an insight, can alert us to suspicious activity, and can start to be able to predict what's normal on our network. And once we've understood that, we should be able to take the next and final step. Being able to create policy based on that insight is a Juniper niche, and we'll rely heavily on the Policy Enforcer piece of software that is unique to Juniper. Now, the cycle does continue to go round, as I mentioned before. Now, is your network able to protect from threats that are already within it? To turn that back into the hardware once more, the Juniper SRX is the Juniper's firewall, which comes in a various number of sizes, but really hits its sweet spot from 50 users and up. Security Director is a piece of management software that brings the information together from all those firewalls. You can also use JSA, which is Juniper's SIEM solution. It's a rebadged IBM box, but packs a lot of punch for its cost. And Policy Enforcer is unique to Juniper, which really is a market leader in security automation. Now, as salespeople, we all talk about rapport, and rapport being very important as a key word. Now, introducing a firewall in the first conversation and saying this is the product that you need will go a long way to creating negative rapport. If we're able to understand the customer's pain points around what they're doing to protect their network and what they can do to protect their network, and introducing new ideas around automation that can save their IT staff not only time but also work, we're able to earn that rapport that we want to be able to sell them this solution. This is where we want to be. This is the value that we should be wanting to add to our customer when we're calling them up for the first time or even for the 100th time. This is the conversation we want to have. It's about changing that conversation, not just on a Juniper message, but being able to go out there and say that Juniper works with other products as well. So of course you can buy your Aruba ClearPath. Of course we can work with that. And we can then introduce a Juniper solution at a later date or even today. Now, Westcoast is clearly a great place to come and get some help selling the Juniper products. We'll just talk about the team shortly, but we also here at Westcoast pride ourselves on being the best, as I mentioned. So expect a good response from anyone when you email juniper@westcoast.co.uk. So Westcoast's Juniper team is a very experienced team with 25 years worth of networking experience. We'll show our faces shortly in a couple of slides' time, but we're very approachable as a bunch. We'll always be happy to help out. Now, more about Westcoast. Westcoast as a business is continually being nominated for awards for marketing, for training, for sales, and we live to be the best. We live and breathe passion, and that's what we want to achieve with Juniper, and we can only do that through your help. So we're really looking for you to come out and support Westcoast and join us in selling Juniper. Now here we are. As I mentioned, I'm on the right, and the two BDMs are on the Ed Lucking and Mifty, and Adam Hartley heads up the pre-sales team. Thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to hearing from you again soon. Please send any email, any questions, or any response you might have to juniper@westcoast.co.uk.